I never told my son I won $2 million. His wife said, "Throw her out. She's worthless." I just smiled. When my daughter-in-law screamed those words at Thanksgiving dinner, with gravy still steaming on the table and my grandchildren watching from the hallway, I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I simply folded my napkin, placed it beside my untouched plate, and smiled. Because what none of them knew, not my son, not his cruel wife, not anyone at that table, was that 8 months earlier I had won $2 million in the Oregon State Lottery, and I had told absolutely no one. Good day, dear listeners. It's Isabella again. I'm glad you're here with me. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end, and let me know which city you're listening from. That way, I can see how far my story has traveled. Today's story is one that still gives me chills when I think about it. It's about a mother's love, a daughter-in-law's greed, a son's betrayal, and the quiet, devastating power of patience. So settle in, because this one runs deep. My name is Dorothy Caldwell. I'm 72 years old, and I live in a small blue house on Maple Ridge Lane in Medford, Oregon. It's the same house my late husband, Harold, and I bought in 1981, back when the paint was fresh and the oak tree in the front yard was barely taller than me. Harold was a pipe fitter at the Boise Cascade paper mill for 31 years. Hard-working man, quiet. The kind of man who said, "I love you" by fixing things before you even noticed they were broken. We were married for 44 years before pancreatic cancer took him in January of 2018. He was 69. After Harold passed, the house felt enormous. Every creak in the floor sounded like his footsteps. His favorite recliner, the brown leather one with the duct tape on the left armrest, sat empty in the living room for months before I could even look at it without crying. I kept his reading glasses on the end table next to it. I still do. On the mantel above the fireplace, there's a photo of us from our 25th anniversary, both of us standing in front of Crater Lake, Harold squinting into the sun with that crooked smile of his. That photo has been there for over 20 years now. I dust it every Sunday morning. Harold and I had one child, a son. We named him Kevin. Kevin David Caldwell. He was born in 1979, a summer baby, 8 pounds, 2 ounces, with his father's jaw and my mother's green eyes. I loved that boy with every cell in my body. I worked as a clerk at the Rogue Valley Medical Center for 26 years, so we could put Kevin through school, pay for his braces, buy him his first car, a used '94 Honda Civic that Harold spent 3 weekends fixing up. Kevin played baseball in high school, shortstop. He wasn't the best on the team, but Harold and I never missed a game. Not one. Kevin went to Southern Oregon University, got a degree in business administration, and moved to Portland in 2004. That's where he met her, Vanessa Marie Thornton. I want to be fair. In the beginning, Vanessa seemed like a perfectly nice young woman. She was pretty, had a sharp laugh, and she dressed well. She worked in marketing for a sportswear company downtown. When Kevin brought her home for Christmas in 2005, she brought me a candle that smelled like vanilla and told me my pot roast was the best she'd ever had. I remember thinking, Harold, our boy found a good one. They got married in June of 2007 at a vineyard outside of McMinnville. I paid for the rehearsal dinner. Gladly. That's what mothers do. They had 2 children, my granddaughter Lily, born in 2009, and my grandson Marcus, born in 2012. Those kids were the light of my world after Harold died. Lily has my smile. Marcus has Harold's quiet way of watching everything before he speaks. I used to drive up to Portland every other weekend to see them. I'd bring homemade cookies, books from the library, little things from the dollar store that made their eyes light up. For years, everything felt steady. Not perfect, but good. The way family is supposed to feel. The first signs of trouble came in 2019, about a year after Harold's funeral. Kevin called me on a Wednesday evening. I remember because I had just finished watching Jeopardy, which Harold and I used to watch together every night. Kevin's voice was tight, the way it gets when he's nervous. "Mom, I hate to ask this, but we're in a tight spot. Vanessa's company did some layoffs, and our mortgage payment is due Friday. Could you help us out? Just this once?" He asked for $5,000. I sent it the next morning by wire transfer. No questions asked, no hesitation. What else would a mother do? 3 months later, in September, another call. This time it was Vanessa who called, which was unusual. She said Marcus needed dental surgery, something about an impacted tooth, and their insurance wouldn't cover the full amount. She asked for $4,200. I mailed a check. Then in February of 2020, right before the world shut down, Kevin called again. He said they needed help with a car repair. Their Subaru had broken down, and the mechanic quoted them $3,800. I transferred the money from my savings account, the one Harold and I had built together over decades of careful, modest living. Let me be clear about something. Harold and I were never rich. When he died, he left me the house, which was paid off, a small life insurance policy of $75,000, and our savings, which at that point totaled about $92,000. I also had my Social Security, which came to about $1,400 a month, and a tiny pension from the medical center of about $460 a month. That was it. That was my whole world, financially speaking. Every dollar I sent Kevin and Vanessa came from that finite pool. By the end of 2020, the request had become a rhythm, almost predictable. Every 6 to 8 weeks, a phone call. Always urgent. Always temporary. Always with a promise to pay it back. In April of 2020, Kevin asked for $6,000 for back taxes. I sent it. In July, Vanessa texted me, and I still have the message saved. She wrote, "Hi, Dorothy. So sorry to bother you. Kevin is too proud to ask, but we're really struggling. Could you possibly help with the kids' school supplies and activity fees? Anything helps." I sent $3,500. In October, Kevin said they needed to replace their furnace before winter. $7,200. I canceled my annual eye exam to free up the funds. In January of 2021, Vanessa said Lily needed a tutor for her math because she was falling behind. $2,800. I stopped buying name brand groceries that month. Started clipping coupons again, something I hadn't done since the 1990s. In March of 2021, the big one came. Kevin called me at 8:23 in the morning, which was early for him. He sounded panicked. He said they were 3 months behind on their mortgage and were facing foreclosure. He needed $22,000. $22,000. I sat in Harold's recliner and stared at that Crater Lake photo on the mantel while he talked. My hands were shaking. That was nearly a quarter of everything I had left. But I sent it. Because he was my son. Because I pictured Lily and Marcus losing their home. Because Harold would have wanted me to help. After that, the requests kept coming, but they changed in tone. There was less gratitude, less apology, more entitlement. In June of 2021, Vanessa called and said they needed $8,000 for a family emergency. She wouldn't specify what it was. When I gently asked for details, she sighed and said, "Dorothy, do you trust your son or not?" I sent the money. In September, Kevin asked for $5,000 for business expenses. He said he was thinking about starting a consulting firm. I sent it even though I had to postpone getting a crown replaced on my back molar. The dentist had told me it could become infected if I waited too long. I waited. In December of 2021, I added everything up. I sat at my dining room table with my bank statements spread out in front of me, a yellow legal pad, and a calculator. My hands were trembling. The total came to $67,500. In just under 3 years, I had given my son and his wife $67,500. Not 1 cent had been repaid. I called Kevin that evening. I tried to keep my voice steady. Honey, I've been going through my finances, and I'm getting a little worried. I know you've had a hard stretch, but do you think you and Vanessa could start paying some of it back? Even just a little each month? There was a long pause. Then Kevin said, Mom, we're still getting back on our feet. You know that. Can we talk about this later? We never talked about it later. In 2022, the request slowed, but only because I started saying I didn't have the money. And mostly, I didn't. My savings had been cut nearly in half. I was 70 years old, living on a fixed income, eating rice and beans 3 nights a week, and putting off medical appointments because I couldn't afford the copays. Meanwhile, I noticed something on Vanessa's social media. In August of 2022, she posted photos from a resort in Cabo San Lucas, a beachfront suite, matching cocktails at sunset, a new designer handbag she showed off in a mirror selfie. The caption read, "Living our best life. We deserve this." I stared at that photo for a long time. Then I closed my laptop and sat in Harold's chair and looked at his reading glasses on the end table. I didn't cry, not yet, but something shifted in me that night. Something quiet, something permanent. Then came the lottery. On Saturday, March 11th, 2023, I bought a Megabucks ticket at the Safeway on Biddle Road. I did it the way I always did. Once a week, $2, the same numbers I'd been playing for 11 years. Harold's birthday, my birthday, our anniversary, Kevin's jersey number from high school baseball. I tucked the ticket into my wallet and forgot about it. The following Tuesday, I was eating oatmeal and watching the morning news when the anchor mentioned a Megabucks jackpot winner from Southern Oregon. I almost didn't check, but something made me reach for my wallet. I pulled out the ticket. I looked at the numbers on the screen. I looked at the ticket. I looked at the screen again. My hands went numb. My oatmeal got cold. I sat at that kitchen table for 45 minutes without moving. $2 million. Before taxes, $2 million. After Oregon state taxes and federal withholding, the lump sum payout came to approximately $1,160,000. I want you to understand something. My first instinct, my very first thought, was to call Kevin, to tell him, to share it, because that's what mothers do. We give, we share, we open our hands and our hearts, and we pour everything out for our children. But then I thought about Cabo San Lucas. I thought about the designer handbag. I thought about my postponed dental crown and my rice and beans and the $67,500 I would never see again. And I closed my mouth. I put the ticket in Harold's old lockbox in the bedroom closet. And I told no one. The next week, I drove to Salem and claimed the prize at the Oregon Lottery headquarters. I opted for the lump sum. I opened a new account at a different bank, Columbia Bank on Main Street, under just my name. I told the lottery officials I wanted to remain anonymous. Oregon is one of the states that allows it. I signed the paperwork. I drove home. I made myself a cup of tea, and I sat in Harold's recliner and cried, not from happiness, from relief, from the sudden, overwhelming feeling that maybe, just maybe, I had been given a second chance. For the next several months, I lived exactly as I had before. Same house, same groceries, same routines. I didn't buy a new car. I didn't renovate the kitchen. I didn't take any trips. I wanted to see something first. I wanted to see what Kevin and Vanessa would do if they thought I was still just a struggling old widow with dwindling savings. I didn't have to wait long. In May of 2023, Vanessa called. Not Kevin, Vanessa. She said they were thinking about buying a rental property as an investment. She said it would be good for the whole family's future. She asked if I could contribute $15,000 toward the down payment. I said, Vanessa, I don't have that kind of money anymore. I've been very careful, but things are tight. Her response chilled me. She said, and I wrote this down immediately after the call. Well, Dorothy, what exactly are you spending your money on? You live alone in that old house. You don't go anywhere. You don't do anything. It's not like you need it. I said nothing for a long moment. Then I said, I'll think about it. Don't think too long, she said. The market moves fast. I didn't send the money. A week later, Kevin called. His voice was cold. Mom, Vanessa told me you wouldn't help with the property. I have to be honest, that hurts. After everything we've been through, I thought family was supposed to stick together. Family is supposed to stick together, Kevin, I said quietly. Then act like it, he said, and hung up. After that, the invitation stopped. No more calls asking me to come up for Lily's soccer games. No more FaceTime with Marcus on Sunday mornings. My birthday in July passed without a card, without a call, without a single text message. I turned 72 alone, eating a slice of cake I bought myself from the bakery on 4th Street. Then came Thanksgiving. Kevin called 2 weeks before the holiday and invited me to Portland for Thanksgiving dinner. I was so surprised and so grateful that I almost cried on the phone. I thought maybe things were changing. Maybe they had realized how they'd been treating me. I drove the 4.5 hours to Portland on Wednesday afternoon, November 22nd, 2023. I brought a pecan pie I'd made from scratch, Harold's mother's recipe, and small gifts for Lily and Marcus. The dinner started fine. Turkey, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole. Lily showed me a drawing she'd made at school. Marcus told me about a book he was reading about dinosaurs. For a few hours, I felt like a grandmother again. Then, after dessert, Kevin and Vanessa exchanged a look, a rehearsed look. I know my son's face. I've studied it for 44 years. That was not a spontaneous glance. That was a signal. Kevin cleared his throat. Mom, Vanessa and I have been talking, and we think it's time we discussed your living situation. My stomach dropped. My living situation? Vanessa leaned forward. The house in Medford is too big for you, Dorothy. You're alone. You're getting older. It doesn't make sense for you to be rattling around in that place by yourself. We think you should sell it and use the equity to, contribute to the family. You could move into a small apartment, maybe near us, and we could use the proceeds from the house to secure our financial future. It would benefit everyone. I sat very still. You want me to sell Harold's house? It's not Harold's house, Vanessa said, and her voice had an edge to it now. He's been gone for 5 years. It's just a house. Bricks and wood. You're being sentimental. I looked at Kevin. My son. The baby I held in my arms in 1979. The boy whose baseball games I never missed. Kevin, is this what you want? He wouldn't meet my eyes. It makes financial sense, Mom. And then Vanessa said it. The words I will never forget. She pushed back from the table, gestured at me with her wine glass, and said, loud enough for Lily and Marcus to hear from the hallway where they'd retreated, throw her out if she won't cooperate. She's worthless. She has nothing to offer this family anymore. She's just a burden. The room went silent. Kevin stared at his plate. He said nothing. He did not defend me. He did not even look up. I folded my napkin. I placed it beside my plate. I looked at Vanessa and I looked at Kevin, and I smiled. Not a bitter smile, not a forced smile, a real one. Because in that moment, with absolute clarity, I knew exactly what I was going to do. Thank you for dinner, I said. I'll be leaving now. I drove 4.5 hours home in the dark, my pecan pie untouched on the seat beside me. When I got home at 1:47 in the morning, I sat in Harold's recliner, held his reading glasses in my hands, and made a decision. I was done being used. I was done being silent, and I was done pretending that love meant allowing people to destroy you. Something cold settled in my chest that night. Not sadness, not yet. Something sharper, clearer. It was resolve. The following Monday morning at 9:15 sharp, I walked into the law offices of Whitfield and Associates on South Central Avenue in Medford. I had an appointment with attorney Barbara Hendricks. Barbara was in her mid-50s, with short silver hair, sharp brown eyes, and a reputation in Jackson County for being absolutely relentless. A friend from my old book club, a woman named Gail Patterson, had recommended her. Gail said, "If you need someone who won't flinch, call Barbara." I sat across from Barbara's desk and told her everything. I brought a folder, 3 inches thick, containing every bank statement, every wire transfer confirmation, every text message I had screenshotted and printed, and a handwritten log of every phone call with dates and times going back to 2019. Barbara studied the documents for nearly 40 minutes without speaking. Then she looked up and said, "Dorothy, you have given your son and daughter-in-law $67,500 over the course of approximately 3.5 years. Were any of these documented as loans?" "No," I said. "They always said they'd pay me back, but we never put anything in writing. I trusted them." "Did they ever make a single repayment? Even partial?" "Not $1. Barbara nodded slowly. "And the Cabo vacation, the designer items, the rental property investment, all while claiming financial hardship?" "Yes." She closed the folder and looked at me with steady eyes. "Here's what I think, Dorothy. Based on the pattern of behavior, the repeated false representations of financial need, the promises to repay that were never honored, and the evidence of lavish spending during the same period they were requesting money from you, we have a strong case for fraud through misrepresentation. In Oregon, that's actionable under both common law and the Oregon Unlawful Trade Practices Act if we can show a systematic pattern." She paused. "There's also the matter of undue influence. You're a 72-year-old widow on a fixed income. They knew your financial situation. They exploited your love for your son and your grandchildren to extract money under false pretenses. That's not just morally wrong, it's legally wrong." I felt my shoulders drop. For the first time in years, someone was telling me that what happened to me wasn't normal. It wasn't just family being family. It was wrong. Barbara recommended hiring a forensic accountant to trace where my money had actually gone. She brought in a man named Daniel Reeves, a CPA from Ashland, who specialized in financial fraud cases. Daniel was methodical, quiet, and extraordinarily thorough. Within 3 weeks, Daniel had a full picture. The money I sent for the mortgage emergency in March of 2021, the $22,000, was never applied to their mortgage. Their mortgage records, which Barbara subpoenaed, showed they were never 3 months behind. They had missed one payment, exactly one, and had caught up on their own the following month. The $22,000 went into a brokerage account in Vanessa's name. The $6,000 for back taxes in April of 2020, no back taxes existed. Kevin and Vanessa had received a refund that year of $3,100. The $7,200 for the furnace? They did replace their furnace, but through a financing plan with 0% interest. They never needed my money for it. It went toward a down payment on a vacation timeshare in Bend. Item after item, lie after lie, Daniel peeled back the layers. Of the $67,500 I had given them, he estimated that fewer than $9,000 went to legitimate expenses. The rest, over $58,000, was spent on investments, vacations, luxury items, and lifestyle expenses that had nothing to do with the emergencies they described to me. I remember the afternoon Daniel presented his findings. He spread all the receipts, the bank records, the investment statements, across my dining room table. The same table where I'd eaten alone every night for 5 years. The numbers stared back at me, unchanging and cruel. $58,500, stolen. Not with a gun. With a mother's love. Barbara filed suit in Jackson County Circuit Court in January of 2024. The case was Caldwell versus Caldwell and Thornton. She filed for recovery of funds obtained through fraud, breach of implied contract, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Kevin and Vanessa were served on a Thursday afternoon. Kevin called me that evening. His voice was shaking, but not with remorse, with rage. "What the hell are you doing, Mom? You're suing us? Your own son? Are you out of your mind?" "I'm not out of my mind, Kevin. I'm very much in it. For the first time in years. This is insane. We're family. Families help each other. Families don't steal from each other, Kevin. Families don't lie about emergencies while they're booking resort vacations." There was a long silence. Then I heard Vanessa's voice in the background, sharp and venomous. "Tell her we'll have her declared incompetent. Tell her we'll get a conservatorship. She's clearly senile." Kevin repeated it, almost word for word. "Vanessa thinks maybe you're not thinking clearly, Mom. Maybe we need to look into having someone evaluate your mental competence for your own protection." I took a breath. "Kevin, I want you to listen carefully. I have every bank record, every text message, every lie you and Vanessa told me, documented with dates and amounts. I have a forensic accountant's report showing exactly where every dollar went. And I have an attorney who has been practicing for 28 years and has never lost a fraud case in Jackson County. So please, go ahead and try to have me declared incompetent. I welcome the evaluation." He hung up. Over the next several weeks, things escalated. Vanessa began calling extended family members. She called my sister-in-law, Harold's sister Donna, in Grants Pass. She told Donna that I was losing it, that I had become paranoid and vindictive, and that Kevin was heartbroken that his own mother was attacking him. Donna called me that same evening. "Dorothy, what's going on? Vanessa said you're suing Kevin. She said you're confused about money and making wild accusations." I told Donna the truth, all of it. I told her about the $67,500, about the lies, about the Cabo vacation, about Thanksgiving, about being called worthless, about being told to sell Harold's house. Donna was silent for a long time. Then she said, "Dorothy, I believe you. Harold would be so proud of you for standing up." I cried for the first time in weeks. Vanessa also tried to contact my neighbors. She called my friend and next-door neighbor, Ruth Kemper, a retired teacher who had lived beside me for 19 years. Vanessa told Ruth that I was unstable and asked Ruth to keep an eye on me and report back to Kevin. Ruth told Vanessa, in her no-nonsense way, that Dorothy Caldwell was the sharpest, most capable woman she knew, and that if Vanessa called again, Ruth would report it as harassment. Then Vanessa showed up at my house. On a Saturday morning in February, at approximately 9:40, I heard a car pull into my driveway. I looked out the kitchen window and saw Vanessa getting out of Kevin's silver Toyota Highlander. Kevin was in the passenger seat. He didn't get out. Vanessa marched to my front door and knocked hard. I opened the door but did not invite her in. "Dorothy, we need to talk about this lawsuit. This is ridiculous, and you know it. We're giving you a chance to drop it before things get ugly." "Things are already ugly, Vanessa. They've been ugly for a long time. You gave us that money willingly. We never forced you. You lied to me about why you needed it. That's fraud." Her face changed. The pleasant mask she wore for years slipped completely. "You listen to me, old woman. If you don't drop this case, I will make sure you never see Lily and Marcus again. I will make sure every person in this town knows you're a crazy, bitter old woman who's trying to destroy her own family. Do you understand me?" I looked past her, at Kevin, sitting in the car, staring straight ahead. He would not look at me. I said, "Vanessa, you are standing on my property. I'm asking you to leave. If you don't leave in the next 30 seconds, I will call the Medford police and I will file a restraining order." She stood there for a moment, her jaw tight, her eyes narrow. Then she turned on her heel, got in the car, and they drove away. I watched the car disappear down Maple Ridge Lane. Then I went inside, locked the door, and called Barbara Hendricks. "File for a temporary restraining order," I said, "and add the threat about the grandchildren to the emotional distress claim." Barbara said, "Already drafting it." I wasn't alone anymore. I had Barbara, I had Donna, I had Ruth, I had Daniel Reeves and his meticulous numbers, and I had the truth. The case went to trial on April 9th, 2024, in the Jackson County Circuit Courthouse on South Oakdale Avenue. The courtroom was on the second floor, room 212. The walls were wood-paneled, the lights fluorescent, and the air smelled faintly of old paper and floor polish. The Honorable Judge Catherine Blackwood presided. She was in her early 60s, with reading glasses perched on her nose and a reputation for being thorough, fair, and absolutely intolerant of deception. Barbara Hendricks presented the case with surgical precision. She started with the bank records, every transfer laid out on a timeline projected onto a screen for the court. She walked through Daniel Reeves's forensic report, which documented each false claim made by Kevin and Vanessa alongside the actual financial records that disproved them. She presented the text messages, the social media screenshots from Cabo, the timeshare purchase, the brokerage account in Vanessa's name. Daniel Reeves testified as an expert witness. His voice was calm and steady, and he explained each finding as though he were teaching a class. When Barbara asked him to summarize his conclusion, he said, "In my professional opinion, the defendants engaged in a systematic pattern of financial misrepresentation to obtain funds from the plaintiff under false pretenses. Of the total $67,500 transferred, at least $58,500 was obtained through documented false claims of financial hardship that did not exist." Vanessa's attorney, a man named Craig Dunlap from Portland, tried to argue that the money was freely given gifts with no expectation of repayment. Barbara countered with the text messages in which Kevin and Vanessa explicitly promised to repay the money, 6 separate messages over 3 years, each saying some version of, "We'll pay you back as soon as we're on our feet." Craig Dunlap also tried to paint me as a confused elderly woman who didn't understand her own finances. Barbara called my physician, Dr. Alan Whitmore, who testified that I was in excellent cognitive health, and she presented the results of a voluntary neuropsychological evaluation I had undergone 2 months prior, which showed my mental faculties were, and I quote the evaluator, "sharp, organized, and well above average for her age group." Then it was my turn to testify. I sat in that witness chair, looked at Judge Blackwood, and told my story. I told her about Harold, about the 44 years we spent building a life together, about the savings we accumulated dollar by dollar, paycheck by paycheck over 3 decades of hard work, about how I gave that money to my son because I loved him and trusted him, about the lies, about the rice and beans, about the dental crown I couldn't afford, about Thanksgiving, and the word worthless. When Barbara asked me how I felt when Vanessa called me worthless, I paused. I looked at Kevin, who was sitting at the defense table. He was staring at the floor. "I felt like I had failed," I said, "not as a mother, as a person, because I had let my love for my son blind me to what was happening. I had given everything I had, and it still wasn't enough. Not because I didn't give enough, but because enough was never the goal. The goal was to take everything." The courtroom was very quiet. Judge Blackwood delivered her ruling on April 23, 2024. She found Kevin Caldwell and Vanessa Thornton liable for fraud through misrepresentation, breach of implied contract, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. She ordered full restitution of the $67,500 plus $18,000 in punitive damages, plus attorney fees and court costs totaling $14,200. In total, Kevin and Vanessa were ordered to pay $99,000, $700. Judge Blackwood's closing statement was something I will carry with me for the rest of my life. She looked directly at Kevin and said, "The court finds it deeply troubling that a son would exploit a widowed mother's love and trust to this extent. Mrs. Caldwell gave money she could not afford to lose, based on representations that were demonstrably false. The defendants showed no remorse, made no attempt at restitution, and when confronted, responded with threats and intimidation. This court will not tolerate the financial exploitation of vulnerable family members. Period." Kevin did not look at me as they left the courtroom. Vanessa was red-faced and tight-lipped. Craig Dunlap walked quickly, head down. Barbara Hendricks put her hand on my shoulder and said, "It's over, Dorothy." But it wasn't over. Not for Kevin and Vanessa. They didn't have $99,700. Of course they didn't, because despite all their spending, they had leveraged themselves to the hilt. The court placed a lien on their Portland home. Vanessa's brokerage account was frozen and eventually liquidated to satisfy part of the judgment. The timeshare in Bend was sold at a loss. But here's where things truly fell apart for them. Vanessa's employer, the sportswear company in Portland, became aware of the fraud judgment. It was public record. Within 2 months of the ruling, Vanessa was let go. The company cited restructuring, but 3 people in her department told Kevin it was because of the lawsuit. No one wanted a convicted fraudster managing client accounts. Kevin, who had been working as a mid-level project manager at a construction firm, began showing up late, calling in sick, and getting into arguments with coworkers. By August of 2024, he was placed on a performance improvement plan. By October, he was terminated. With no income and a nearly $100,000 judgment hanging over them, the marriage collapsed. Vanessa moved out in November, took most of the furniture, and filed for divorce in December. She moved back to her parents' home in Sacramento. I heard through Donna that Vanessa's own parents were furious with her, not because she got caught, but because they had lent Kevin and Vanessa money too. Money they now suspected had also been misused. Kevin lost the Portland house in March of 2025. He couldn't make the payments without Vanessa's income, and the lien from my judgment complicated any refinancing. The house sold in a short sale. Kevin moved into a 1-bedroom apartment in Gresham. Lily and Marcus, my grandchildren. This is the part that hurts the most to talk about. During the lawsuit, Vanessa made good on her threat and cut off all contact between me and the kids. For months, I didn't see them. I didn't hear from them. It was like losing Harold all over again, except worse, because they were still alive, just out of reach. But after the divorce, Kevin was granted primary custody, and something happened that I didn't expect. In January of 2025, I received a handwritten letter. The handwriting was shaky, like someone was just learning cursive. It was from Lily. She was 15. "Dear Grandma, I know things have been bad between you and Dad. I don't understand all of it, but I miss you. I miss your cookies and your stories about Grandpa Harold. Can I come visit you sometime? Love, Lily." I held that letter against my chest and sobbed. I saw Kevin one more time before the story ends. It was a Saturday afternoon in February of 2025. I was grocery shopping at the Fred Meyer on Biddle Road. I came around the corner of the cereal aisle, and there he was. He looked older, thinner. His hair was uncombed, and he was wearing a jacket that needed washing. We stood there for a long moment, 2 people connected by blood and broken by choices. "Mom," he said. "Kevin." "I'm sorry." His voice cracked. "I know it doesn't fix anything, but I'm sorry." I looked at him. My son, my only child, the baby I held 45 years ago. "I know you are," I said. "Vanessa, she pushed a lot of it. I should have stopped it. I should have said no. I should have protected you." "Yes, you should have. Is there any chance we could, I don't know, start over?" I was quiet for a long time. "I don't know, Kevin. Trust is like Harold's oak tree in the front yard. It takes decades to grow and minutes to cut down. I need time. But the door isn't locked. He nodded. His eyes were wet. He put his hands in his pockets and walked away down the aisle. I felt nothing in that moment. Not triumph, not pity, just quiet certainty that justice had been served, and a small, fragile hope that maybe, someday, something new could grow. Now let me tell you about what happened next, because this story doesn't end with a courtroom or a grocery store aisle. It ends with a life rebuilt. After the judgment was satisfied through the liquidation of assets, I received the full $99,700 over the course of several months. Combined with my lottery winnings, which I had carefully invested with the help of a financial advisor named Patricia Owens at Columbia Bank, I was in a position I had never been in before. I was financially secure, truly secure, for the first time in my entire life. But I didn't hoard it.